Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. And I just want to say welcome, Bilal, Aslam. Looking forward to your talk. Thanks. Please join me in welcome.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, I am competing with lunch, so thank you, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being at the Data and AI Summit, and thank you for, bringing a lunch here. I would like to keep this interactive. I will actually leave a lot of time for questions at the end. So, if you have some questions, sort of write them down, note them down, and then we'll have sort of an interactive Q&A session at the end. There'll be plenty of time. So real quick, before we do anything else, a real quick product safe harbor statement. You've probably seen this if you've seen other talks today, but this is just to say that everything that I'm going to talk about today, it's really just directional. Please don't make purchase decisions on this. I am describing a potential roadmap. OK, perfect. So real quick about myself, I am a senior director of product management at Databricks. I've been here about 4 years. I work on data engineering, all aspects of data engineering. And what I'm going to talk to you about is what's coming in Databricks Workflows. Chances are pretty good that you use Databricks Workflows. So those of you who use Databricks Workflows, can you just quickly raise your hand? That's awesome. OK, great. So hopefully, what I tell you today is really about the future. We're very excited about what's coming. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about the Databricks Workflow story, how we ended up here, sort of the why of Databricks Workflows. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about recent innovations. And some of these you may have heard of. Some of these are in preview. And you may walk out of this room going, I want that feature. I want to try that out. And I'd be very excited to get you onboarded. But really, the fun part is going to be looking ahead, what's coming around the corner, and then hopefully a fun demo showing what's possible with Databricks Workflows. So let's get started. So why did we end up here? Why is there a Workflows orchestrator? And I actually had a really fun, this isn't in the slides, I had this really funny conversation with someone today who's been in the data industry, and he said, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to write a job. Nobody wakes up in the morning wanting to write a workflow. But the reality is workflows are really, really important. Your business depends on it. This is how your machine learning pipelines run. This is how your data pipelines run. So a necessary piece of infrastructure. And that's actually our philosophy. We want to really make sure that this component of the Lakehouse, it does the job and it gets out of the way unless you do all the things that you want to do. And it does them very, very reliably. So you don't have to think about this. So you can do all the other things, like delivering reports and machine learning models and all those things. So actually, Databricks Workflows started in 2015 as just a cron job. And that's, for those of you who have been with Databricks for a while, that actually worked pretty well. But pretty soon, we realized that you want more. Of course, you can't express every single workflow as a cron job. What if you have dependencies? So we created something called notebook workflows. And this is really the percent run. And with the percent run, you can sort of trigger execution of lots of different notebooks and other things. And this is sort of a programmatic way. But what happened was, once we built this feature got a lot of adoption. But then the obvious questions started coming in. This is nice, but how do I observe it? How do I do backfills? It's not UI friendly at all. So in about 2020, we launched something called multitask jobs. And this was really the ability to chain together many tasks into a single job. Of course, now the DAG is real, and now we have to make it super reliable. We have to give you monitoring. So that all came in around 2020. And since then, what we've been really focusing on is making Databricks Workflows the best orchestrator for the Lakehouse. And what that really means is that every single aspect of Databricks, we want to make sure you can orchestrate. Machine learning, Delta Life tables, Databricks SQL. So I'm going to show you what we've been up to. But that also includes streaming. Streaming support in Workflows is really good, and it's only getting better. We also introduced something called cluster reuse. So within a single job, multiple tasks can share clusters for efficiency, and kind of continued being focused on simplicity. But lots of cool things coming. But that's just our story. Let's talk a little bit about modern data engineering. And the reality is, we've come a long way from the days of Airflow. I mean, that was only a few years ago. But that was really at the inception of the modern data age. And the reality is that modern data engineering needs what we call a modern data orchestrator. Let's talk a little bit about that. This is super common. The pictures that you see here, where you have complex DAGs that are doing everything from ETL to machine learning to analytics, our typical customers have hundreds of these. And they need to run reliably, they need to be observable, and every single one of these DAGs is delivering business value. Your business, and that's just a fancy way of saying your business depends on it. Nobody wants to wake up at 2 in the morning with a broken DAG because your Airflow machine died or whatever. You just want these things to run super reliably. So these dependencies between components to deliver business value, that's actually the reality that we all live in. And this just was not true many years ago, but I think it's all of our reality. But this really interesting thing has been happening. We've seen this growth of tools that help you do orchestration. So we did this really interesting survey on data operations, and this is sort of a mind-boggling number that more than 65% of organizations have 10 or more data engineering tools. It's just sort of in the stack. And that's the paradox of choice. You have a lot of choice, but then how do all these tools work together? And in fact, we're actually very proud that we work really well with Apache Airflow. We work really well with Azure Data Factory, Prefect, Dagster, Astronomer. All of these are great tools, but there are many, many ways to orchestrate the Lakehouse. And what we wanted to do was, let's just go ahead and simplify. Let's provide one really great opinionated option in the Lakehouse for doing all your orchestration. And of course, we're an open platform, so we work really well with Astronomer. We work really well with Airflow. And I'm happy to talk about the APIs and the SDKs that enable that. So if you want to use external orchestrators, you can. But really, orchestrating things is such a common option. We wanted to make it really simple. And of course, that's because using a tool outside of Databricks Workflows, actually in the fullness of time, does create its own challenges. The first one is that orchestrators are typically pretty difficult to use by practitioners. So if you're a data scientist or if you're an analyst, your job is not to write workflows. Your job is, as a data scientist, to do analysis or to create models. It is not to write Python to describe a DAG. That's just a new skill you'll have to pick up. The other thing that happens is that once you get these DAGs, these workflows up and running in production, it can actually be really tricky with an external tool to figure out, like, hey, what the heck went wrong? Because that tool, by definition, sits outside the Lakehouse. It doesn't have the lineage. It doesn't have the root-causing ability. So this is where you actually burn a lot of time. And then the last point is that there's just complexity in architecture. You have to manage authorization. You have to manage access. How do you do CI/CD? How do you coordinate deployments to both systems? So the reality is the external orchestrators, while they're awesome, they're not unified with the Lakehouse. And that's where Databricks Workflows come in. And there are 3 key things that we focus on that we really obsess about. One is simplicity. We actually think that simplicity of creating DAGs and workflows and managing them, that's actually a superpower. And this will remain simple. And as I show you all the cool features we're building, just remember, if we're not doing our jobs, you should tell us. We want this to be accessible to everyone. The second point is actionable insights. Workflows are living things. They are created, they're versioned, they're deployed, and they fail sometimes. So we want to make sure that you spend as little time as possible figuring out what happened, right? And no matter whether that's an error in Delta Live tables or whether that's a failure in your machine learning model. And lastly is reliability. The cloud is awesome. It's scalable. It's big, all that. But actually, we have quotas. Clouds have outages. Your source control provider, GitHub, may go down. We really want to make sure that we deliver the right number of 9s of reliability to you, and then you don't have to worry about these things. And again, this is just about us getting out of your way so your workflows just run. OK, so lots of customers love Databricks Workflows, and we're super thankful. I saw a lot of raised hands here, so thank you for trusting us. Actually, well over 7,000 customers. This is actually old data now. Launch workflows every day. We are launching more than 10 million virtual machines. Again, this is slightly old data. This is actually much higher. And we have 99.95%, actually higher than 99.95% uptime, and it's getting better. We actually, a little secret, Stacy's in the back over there. Hi, Stacy. We're spending a ton of time making sure that we're reliable, because we just don't want you to have to pick up that pager if we can pick up the pager for you. OK, so let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been up to. So I actually believe we have built the best orchestrator for the Lakehouse, but we're not done yet. So let me show you what we've been up to. So super proud of this. I think we've been working really hard. We shipped 40 new features this year. And really, what I'm going to show you is think of it as a highlight reel. I can't pack 40 new features. and the velocity is only going up. So hopefully you'll see a lot of cool new things and very useful new things from Databricks soon. So remember I said that we want to orchestrate the Lakehouse, so we spent a lot of time doing that. So you may not know this, but for example, you can orchestrate Databricks SQL completely from within Databricks Workflows. So what that means that if you have SQL queries, if you have dashboards, if you have alerts, you get a single place in the Lakehouse to define when those are run. So for example, you can say, hey, I want to run this SQL query on this serverless SQL warehouse, parameterization, alerting. You get all of that, what you expect, without having to use another tool. And of course, this extends to everything in the Lakehouse, right? So it extends to machine learning as well. It extends to all of ETL. And the really cool thing here is that you just get the familiar reliability, debuggability that you already have with other tasks, say with notebooks, but now with the rest of Lakehouse. dbt is a super cool technology. Actually, who here uses dbt? Yeah, and the hands are going up more and more every year. So we also offer orchestration of dbt projects. And of course, what's really cool about this is that everything can be pulled from version control. So you can version control your job, you can version control your actual tasks behind the jobs, including your dbt projects. Actually, we think we're pretty close to orchestrating the entire Lakehouse, but as the Lakehouse expands into AI and machine learning, we'll be orchestrating more and more of it. This is a big one. We've spent a lot of time thinking about, hey, how do we support big, complex, real-world workflows? And by that, I mean, workflows with many hundreds of tasks, number one, for example, or workflows that have conditional branching, or workflows that are parameterized. There is a balance here with simplicity, but the reality is the real world is complex, and we want to make sure we support you in that. So we're very proud that job parameters are supported now, and they're out there. You can use them. The conditional task is new. So if you want to do conditional, and actually I'll show a cool demo of this. This is basically branching within your workflow. So if you use the Airflow branching operator, this should be very familiar. And it's just point and click. And of course, you can use this with an API as well. Queuing is really, really important. And it's a little button that you can, or a little toggle that you can hit on your job definition. But basically, with queuing, we will queue up your runs and then run them when resources are available. This is great. So we don't drop runs anymore. Especially useful during backfills, or especially useful when you're doing lots of runs at once. And we're going to be investing more and more in making these really complex, real-world DAGs possible on Databricks Workflows. The other thing that we've noticed is that Workflows gets adopted across your organization. So what this means is that you may have multiple workspaces, but even within a workspace, you may have multiple teams that are collaborating with each other. So what we wanted to do was really make it simple to have orchestration via data dependencies across teams. So a possibility would be, hey, this Bilal, I have my workflow, but I want to trigger my workflow when Stacy's workflow is done running, or when new data arrives in a bucket. So there are three cool things that are really useful we've been busy building. Number one is Workflows now supports triggering on file arrival. This is actually really simple to set up. If you use Unity Catalog and external locations, all you have to do is, and I'll show a demo of this, but basically you can say, I want this workflow to run when new data arrives. You no longer have to run a VM to poll for something. We will take care of all that for you. And this already works for up to 10,000 files arriving at once. And we're working on scaling that. So this now you can decouple data arrival from execution. The other thing that's really awesome is triggering child jobs. So what you can do here is you can say, hey, I want to run this job as part of my DAG. And what's really awesome about this is you get full lineage, you get full visibility, and then you can treat the child job as a modular subunit. This is really great if you want to trigger another organization or team's job from within your DAG. And something that's I'm really excited about that's coming soon is triggering on table changes. So this is going to work with Unity Catalog and Delta tables. But you can say, hey, when there's a change in this table, I want to trigger my workflow. So now this is on data arrival in a table. So very useful. And there's lots more that's coming over here, but these are the things that are part of the highlight reel. Streaming is super important. Actually, lots of you run streaming jobs on workflows. And our MO here was really to just make sure that you can reliably run streaming jobs without having to worry about it. So we added something called a continuous schedule, and it's already available. So if you have a structured streaming job, you can schedule it with a continuous schedule. We'll make sure it's up and running. We'll handle all the retries, all the infra problems for you. And pretty soon, we'll be adding something called stream backlog monitoring. So what this means is that we can watch the backlog of the events as they build up in the structured streaming job, and we'll actually expose that to you. And you'll be able to alert on that. So if your consumer goes down, you do want that pager to ring. You don't want that backlog to build up. Monitoring is a huge thing for us. And as you expand, as you run lots and lots of jobs, actually, in the past, it used to be really difficult to see what's going on. So our principle here was, hey, wouldn't it be great if you just always knew the health of your workflows, regardless of however many jobs you have? So the first feature, which I'm really proud of, as you can see some of the animations, is called visual monitoring. With visual monitoring, you get a near real-time view of the health of workflows, all your workflows in a workspace. It's super cool, actually. It shows you successes, failures, skips, and it's near real time, so you can actually drill in very quickly and find problems. Webhook integrations are coming soon, and this is super cool because you may have an external system like, say, PagerDuty or something like that, which does all the monitoring. So what we'll do is, based on certain events in workflows, we'll fire a webhook into that system, or even Slack, for example. And duration alerts are exactly what they sound like. You can set them at the job level, and you can say, hey, if this job runs above a certain threshold, I want to be alerted. And there's a lot more coming in monitoring. You may have heard about system tables just recently. System tables, think of them as tables that are provided by Databricks with useful information about billing, cost, auditing, and so forth. Very excited about this. We're also going to be hydrating those tables with jobs data. So this is really useful. Maybe there are some of you here who are managing a large deployment. You may have hundreds of jobs with tens of thousands of runs. You can do historic cost analysis. You can detect failure patterns. You can just ask questions like, hey, which jobs are running that have no downstream usage through lineage? So where am I wasting money? All of this will be possible. It's very exciting. And we're hoping we actually give you some template queries and dashboards to get started. So it's an out-of-the-box experience, and you can customize it later. But this will just make managing jobs, sort of the operational sides of jobs, a lot easier. Oh, and there's a session about it apparently tomorrow. There are 2 sessions on observability and cost management. You should go to both. OK, as I mentioned earlier, we have built the best orchestrator for the Lakehouse. We're not done. So what I'd love to do is show you what's coming around the corner, some of the things that are not part of the highlight reel, but they're still in the oven. This one is probably my favorite. And actually, who here does any kind of CI/CD with workflows? OK. Hopefully, all of your home-built scripts and jobs API calls and shell scripts will just go away once we ship this. So basically, this is very exciting. So what we're working on is a single unified way to do CI/CD for everything in Databricks, not just jobs and workflows. We're calling this Databricks Asset Bundles, I think. Yeah, so there is a session today at 4:30 p.m. It's a declarative, configuration-based, and convention-based approach to defining a project or an asset bundle. There's an awesome CLI for running tests and for deploying it. And this completely integrates with version control. So for example, with Git, and you can have multiple environments. So this just makes it so that there are certain jobs. We want to make it really easy to create workflows, but there are certain jobs that you want to run very reliably no matter what. The other thing I'm really excited about for the developers among us is something we're calling the Workflows Authoring Toolkit. The name's a little TBD, but first of all, we already have a Python SDK for Databricks. So you can, it's a wrapper, higher level wrapper around the API. So we already have that out there. If you're not using it, please try it out. We already have excellent Terraform support, comprehensive, with everything in workflows and beyond. But the Workflows Authoring Toolkit, the idea here is that we want to make it easy for you to develop workflows in Python in an IDE. So no more massive JSON documents if you're a Python developer. And for those of you coming from Airflow, this should sound really familiar. But of course, because it is Python and because it's version controlled, this will allow you to follow the software development lifecycle. Cool. And this is a bit more around the corner, but I'm very excited about it. I'm proud that we have made it really easy to orchestrate the Lakehouse, but we want to go beyond that. We know that there are lots of partners, there are lots of services out there. So even if you are using and loving the Lakehouse, there's a whole other world out there of other software services and APIs that you want to be able to call. So we would like to make it possible to orchestrate anything, any API, every service from within Databricks Workflows. If you have a particular service or an API or a system that you really want us to orchestrate first, please come find me after this session. I'd love to take down sort of your wish list. But this is really us going beyond the Lakehouse and saying we want to help you orchestrate everything. And then we want to give you the same observability and monitoring and reliability that you expect from Databricks Workflows. This last thing, I believe it's the last thing before I show you hopefully a good demo, is something we're very excited about. And we're calling it serverless compute, and you're going to see this everywhere in Databricks, both in notebooks and Delta Live tables, but of course in Databricks Workflows as well. Who here enjoys configuring clusters? You're alone. OK, no. So most of you don't enjoy configuring clusters. I really don't like it because I can't keep track of the instance sizes and the number of executors and the driver size. But jokes aside, I'm sure you've thought about it. You've had to do this because you want to make your jobs run more efficiently. But long story short, we want to take that pain away from you. And the idea behind serverless is we want to make it very, very simple. You give your compute a name, and then you say, go Databricks, take care of it for me. So with the simplicity, we're also hoping to bring you actual monetary savings. It's a fully managed service. We are going to take historical data about the metrics of your workload, not the actual content of your workloads, and hopefully do automatic optimization for you. So neck to neck, this should be TCO, a better total cost of ownership for you. It's actually in preview. It's a very small preview right now. We're looking to expand it. If you're interested, please let me know. But the key point here is that everything is going serverless at Databricks. We want to take away the pain of configuring and manage compute for you, everything from Databricks SQL to model serving and, of course, the whole data engineering ecosystem here. OK, with that in mind, let me do a super quick demo. Actually, a quick show of hands here. Who here has not ever created a workflow? OK. I see a couple of hands. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this, the level 100 where I just create a very simple workflow. I'll just show you what a very simple workflow looks like. This is what it looks like. It's point and click, and anybody can use it. You can click Add Tasks. You can add notebooks, Python scripts, wheels, DBT projects, Delta Live tables. So please go and try it out. It's accessible under the Workflows tab. But what I'd like to do now is actually show you something that is a bit more exciting than a demo workflow. What I'd like to show you is something which is more real world. So for this, I'm actually going to pretend, and I'm going to maybe zoom in a little bit over here. OK, let's do this. OK. So what I'm going to pretend here, bear with me for a moment. This is all just made up. But the idea here is that I'm the owner of a vinyl store, records. Maybe there are people here who don't know what they are, but they're records. And I'm in the business of taking deliveries of these records, these vinyl records, and then selling them on my website. OK? And what happens is that every day I get a data file, and then I ingest that data file. What I want to do is I really want to make sure that I do two things. One, I find the really interesting records, and then I actually want to use LLMs to enhance the data that I'm getting. OK, so it's ingestion, some processing, and then I'm actually going to build a dashboard out of this to show you. It will all make sense in a moment. OK, so the first thing to realize is that workflows can start very simple, and they can get very complicated. And the first task of this workflow, what we call a task, is simply a notebook. And that's actually the most common way to build workflows. A lot of our customers, a lot of you are using notebooks inside of workflows. And what I'm going to show you this real quick. What this notebook is doing is this is live. And there's a little dog in the corner. This is our dog fooding environment. So what this notebook is doing is simply reading a CSV file, and it's ingesting it. Okay, nothing too exciting. And then what's happening is once this notebook is done executing, we're doing something called, we're calling it scan for valuable disks. And let's go actually take a look at what that does. It's live. OK. And over here, what I'm doing is I'm just running some SQL, some really, really basic SQL. What I'm doing is I'm just deleting records that are older than 1995, because of course, like no good music was made after 1995, okay? And then I have this really interesting thing, and you may not have seen this before. This is what we call a conditional task. And a conditional task, what it lets you do is it lets you branch, and it lets you branch based on logic. And we've gone to lengths to make sure that this is very, very simple to use. We wanted to make sure that we're not giving you the super complex DSL. You don't have to write Python for this. So you choose the task type. It's called the if-else condition, and there's an expression. So when AI underscore enabled is not equal to no, then you take one path, and then you take another path. Okay, so this should look very familiar. It's a classic if-then. And what we're doing here is that in one path, we're actually, and if you zoom in over here a little bit, what we're doing is we're calling another job that is defined elsewhere. And this is what we call a child job. And then if you come here, if you look at this over here, it says run job. So if you're not using this, this is super powerful. It lets you kind of split up your code, lets you split up your workflow. And this is just a normal job, but we're going to spin it up and we're going to run it. If the parent job fails, or if the child job fails, you get full repair and rerun functionality. So if anything fails, levels down, you can always just observe it, and you can fix it if you want. And let's take a look at this. I'm going to open this up real quick over here. And what this child job is doing is super interesting. And this will show you some of the nature of the Lakehouse and how we're integrating with it. And this task in here is very interesting. This is what we call a SQL task. And I had talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is really saying, here's some SQL, run it, and in this case, just run it on serverless compute. Spin it up super fast, run my query, shut it down when you're done. Don't waste any money, okay? So if you're not using the SQL task, you should really check it out. And if you look at the query here, this is kind of cool. What it's doing is we're creating a function. We're creating a user-defined function in SQL, which is calling out to Azure OpenAI. So it's calling out to the OpenAI service in Azure, and it actually calls the GPT 3.5 Turbo model. And it passes it a secret from our secret store. And I'll show you what it does. So it passes in the name of the band, and then it gets back a description. And this is just pure SQL. It's very easy to do. And then it runs an update statement, okay? And then you can see this over here. Because this is a workflow scheduler, we're both doing some checks on the descriptions. We're making sure there are no naughty words in there. And then we're updating a dashboard, okay? So again, this is the nature of integrating with the Lakehouse. You don't have to have extra infrastructure. You don't have to do timing to update the dashboard. You can just tell workflows, hey, when you're done with all this, I want you to go update the dashboard. And of course, you get full visibility. You get full observability. Okay, so we see that this has been running for a long time. It has been running successfully. I can quickly look at it and see where time is being spent. I can look at each task and see how much time it's taking. And I can even see here that there was a cancellation. There was a problem here, and I can take some action. And just to show you that this actually works, let me actually go to the dashboard real quick and see what we've been doing. And this will open up over here in a moment. Okay, and this is what so just to show you what we're up to, we actually loaded a lot more than 12 artists from the ingestion file. Remember, we dropped any artist after 1995 because their music sucks. And then what we did was we passed in the artist name and the record name to OpenAI, and it gave us this description, or AI generated, which we ingested back. Okay. And all of this I was able to do with just a few clicks, right? This isn't a lot of code. This is, a Spark call to read a data frame, a CSV, and then another SQL call to call out to OpenAI. But then what I do get is full visibility into everything that's going on, and an orchestrator that truly integrates with the Lakehouse. So we're almost done. I actually want to make sure we have at least 5 minutes for questions. So let me take a pause here. Happy to take any questions. I think Mike is going to moderate. So please grab him if you have a question.
Hi, thanks for the awesome presentation. Is this workflow available to be plugged into other data warehouse or even other ETL workflows?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can already, because Databricks Workflows can execute anything inside of Databricks, let's say you have another data warehouse or even a database, like MySQL or Redshift or whatever. You can actually you can create a notebook or you can give a jar or Python script that does the call out and works with it. We are working on, or we're thinking about better native integration so you don't have to create that notebook. We're hoping to make it more point and click for you. By the way, one of the things you can do even today is if you are using query federation, then what I would do is I would then mount that external system, say Redshift or MySQL, into Unity Catalog as a query federation connection. That becomes a foreign catalog, and now you can just write SQL on it, and that SQL just executes from the SQL task. That can already be done today. Use the microphone. Sorry.
One quick follow-up is without getting Databricks, is this available as a standalone product?
It is not available as a standalone product, and it's actually quite hard to make it a standalone product because the whole point is to make it completely integrated with Databricks and to kind of remove the need to have separate products.
Okay, two maybe feature requests or maybe it's already somewhere on the roadmap, but something scheduler that can schedule with different runtime parameters. This is something that we are really missing because, for example, we have one job that runs for multiple countries, and based on this, it has to have the different schedules, and per country we need to have some input parameters that will tell, okay, this is country A, this is country B, and so on.
Yeah.
So this is one thing, and second thing is versioning of the jobs to have clear visibility, which runs was under what version, and so on.
Absolutely. So the second one is really easy. We're already working on it because you can already. There's a preview of source version controlling jobs. And that percolates into the user interface and will tell you which commit you're coming from. The first one is a really good piece of feedback. We'll definitely think about it. But right now, we don't support it, sort of this enhanced or more advanced scheduling.
Hey, thanks for the session. So I have one question on the new topic that you brought up on the serverless compute. So does it provide installation of like custom packages? So we do create like PySpark custom packages on our project. So
yeah, definitely.
As part of the bootstrap.
Yeah, definitely. That's something we're thinking about how to do it. So that would include, say, we're definitely thinking through installation of Python packages, for example. We want to make sure we support something like that in a serverless context, so you don't have to, say, use init scripts or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I have two more questions. Sorry for that. So there is one of the scenario wherein we are triggering job A from job B, right? So basically, job A is dependent on job B. So when we add a dependency like that, so it keeps the compute on for job B, like although like the job A triggers.
Oh,
so this is one of the feedback we wanted to give you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, we can grab Stacy after this. She's the engineering director. I'll have to think about kind of how to work that out.
Right.
That's reasonable. But is that child job? We can take it offline, but yeah, I'd love to talk to you more about it.
And is there a easy way to like move kind of metadata between the jobs or tasks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm just comparing with XComs of Airflow because we would need that kind of.
Yeah, we do actually support that. It's called task values. So your upstream task can set, or a task can set a task value. It can be retrieved. We also support a lot more richer things now. So absolutely, look up task values for workflows.
Hi, thank you. All exciting features, looking forward to them. Now, let's say I have 3 workspaces. I create a workflow in dev. This has a SQL query, a dashboard.
Yeah.
But that's linked to this workspace, right?
Indeed.
I want to deploy this workflow in higher environments.
Yeah.
Now, in that workspaces, I don't have these SQL queries and dashboards.
Yeah.
So at this point, are they source controlled, or do I have to manage it?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So with Databricks Databricks Asset Bundles, that actually solves the exact problem. Because what Databricks or DABs, let's call them that, they're basically a hermetically sealed artifact. So they're version controlled. You define everything together, and then you can promote them between environments. So you should go to the DABs talk, and it's exactly your use case.
Hello. I have a question about the file trigger example you gave. Are you able to pass in the file name that triggered the job into the notebook?
I think so. We'll have to check with Stacy. I'm not 100% sure. I have seen that request before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question is on that, the workflows actually. On the workflows, when we are having those in the portals here, they all are in the same page. There's no way of grouping them or putting them in one place.
Yep.
And the workflow names are also not unique. Like you can name, with one name, you can have 100 of workflows here. So are we planning to fix something toward that?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things, you're absolutely right. Right now, it's just this giant list. So we're definitely looking into ways of making filtering and grouping better, so you can then find groups of jobs faster.
And when you're talking about these serverless workflows, serverless clusters actually, basically, on the SQL warehouse for running the jobs also. Normally, cyber will not agree on them because they're asking to open so many ports and so many data storage accounts also they're asking to open. Along with that, these IPs can't monitor by our company or cyber actually. So how we are going to deal with this thing?
You're absolutely right. We want to make sure that across our product portfolio, we can support the most stringent security requirements. Shutting off access to the internet, encryption keys. So that's a larger conversation, but absolutely. Look, we can't say serverless is great unless it's secure. That's a top priority for us, absolutely. So we're hoping to get to a point where we can support just absolutely the strictest requirements. One more question?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for the demo, but I have the similar kind of question. So we think that serverless is the future, but we are a bank. I'm one of the largest bank of Netherlands, but what we are looking to use serverless, it's all in Databricks control, right? So your networks where the compute is running, and that is what we don't want. We are looking like it's within our own boundary, it's in our own network.
Absolutely.
That is one, and also few of the features are very tightly coupled, like for Unity Catalog. So if you want to use the trigger for the workflows, it's tightly coupled with Unity Catalog. If you have Unity Catalog enabled, then only you can use that.
And by the way, I can tell you why that is. So it's not, the second one, I'll take that first. The reason why we did that was to make the feature usable. So what Unity Catalog gives us is two things. One, what it gives us is the notion of an external location. The external location is just, a storage path, S3, GCS, ADLS, whatever, right? More importantly, Unity Catalog can go ahead and mint secure tokens to access that location. So your job configuration becomes a lot simpler. So in jobs, because of Unity Catalog, you can just say, look, just monitor this path. If we didn't use Unity Catalog, we'd have to build all the infrastructure for storing the path, the secrets. How do we make those safe? Unity solves that problem. How do we make sure that we obtain short-lived tokens? But Unity already does that. So the reason why we did that was just to dramatically simplify the experience. It does mean there's a dependency on Unity, but I think for the vast majority of customers, it's a win.